Joined now by NHL insider of the Frankly Speaking podcast and Daily Faceoff, the one and only Frank Seravalli from All-Star Game in Toronto. How we doing?
Pretty good. It's been a really, really busy day, so lots more
Yes.
on the go, and it's I can't believe all these trades. Guys are dropping like flies on my trade targets board.
Yeah.
The NHL used to hate business being conducted this week, but do they hate it? I mean, this is causing a lot of buzz.
Well, I also think they probably like a lot of buzz and news being dumped on a day that the commissioner and the NHLPA executive director may be getting grilled over a sexual assault scandal.
Right. There's that as well. Okay, we're going to put you on blast in a second, and then we're going to throw you a bouquet. But here's the big trade for the Vancouver Canucks, Elias Lindholm. What did you make of it from a Vancouver perspective?
I think they're probably jumping for joy knowing that they're getting an impact piece that when you think about what they didn't have to give up, how many times did I say you cannot trade Lekkerimaki at any point? You keep your top prospect. Your pick this year is a late one. You have probably an outside chance to keep Lindholm. And the rest of the pieces, once they move on from Lekkerimaki, it's almost like you're breathing a sigh of relief where you're saying, okay, take anyone else that you want, any of these guys that are more or less hope bets, and that's great. We're well positioned now to chase a Stanley Cup, and we still have our top prospect in the fold.
And you may well have insurance in case Elias Pettersson wants to move on to greener pastures. What do you?
I don't look into that at all.
You're not buying that?
No, I understand the angst on Pettersson. I really do, and I also get that if this were, and I don't want to say any other market, but I would say in your market in particular, everyone seems to be walking on pins and needles on a daily basis, even while your team's atop the Western Conference. They need something to be nervous about, and I get it. But I don't have any indication at all that Pettersson is not going to be a Vancouver Canuck for a long time. Yes, like the Canucks, like the fan base, I don't have any evidence. I don't see anything, no pen to paper or anything like that, but I can't imagine that they're thinking that way when it comes to Lindholm, because as good of a player as he is, he's just not. No one is Pettersson.
Okay, with or without Pettersson, what do you think the chances are he'll resign here? What's the cost range on this player, Frank? Because in moving Kuzmenko, they open up $5.5 million from next year's cap.
It's expensive. There was lots of talk in Calgary in the preseason that Lindholm was looking for a number that started with a 9, and even if it's in the 8s, I just don't see a path for the Canucks to be able to afford that. Maybe there's some other surgery done. Maybe he's so good and fits so well that you have no choice but to make other moves in order to make something like that happen. But with Pettersson's new deal that he's owed, with the next deal for Filip Hronek, which I continue to pound my fist on the table and say that that's a number that starts with an 8, I just don't see, the math isn't mathing for me.
Flames fans seem pretty happy with the deal too, and so did Conroy. Did the people that you've been rubbing shoulders with this week? Does it seem like a fair deal? Is it just a hockey trade?
Yeah, it's one of those deals that I think is kind of, and to hear Craig Conroy and the way that he went about business, it's refreshing in the sense that I don't think anyone here was trying to, quote, win the deal, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. This is a deal that works for both sides. The Flames get a lot in return. Some of them are lottery tickets. Like, I think as intrigued as, Canucks fans might have been about Hunter Brzeskevich, like, to me, the points that he's piled up in Kitchener this year are probably not a really good indicator of future success at an NHL level. So, but it's a worthy gamble if you're the Flames. And you get the first round pick. And I think the big linchpin to all of this, which is no surprise, is Kuzmenko. You guys, and you saw it firsthand last year with the 39 goals and 74 points. There's something there. But to drag that out of him on a consistent basis, the Flames needed pieces for the here and now. They need pieces for 2 to 3 years from now. And Kuzmenko could very well be one of those guys. And That's another reason why they had to make sure and get the comfort from him in order to pull something like this off.
Do you have anything on the next step on Chris Tanev? Is that likely? I know it's an easy dot to connect here from a Vancouver perspective, but how realistic is it?
Still in Vancouver?
Yeah, back to Vancouver, yes.
No, yeah. I mean, look, it's possible. I certainly wouldn't rule it out. I would say that it's probably not likely. Because if it were, and look, there's probably some wisdom from the Flames' perspective to say, hey, we're probably better off getting more for this guy separately than as part of a package. But if they were going to do it, why wouldn't they have just done it in one shot? And
Well,
I don't have any evidence that was the case, that he was included in the deal.
that was my next question. Do you know whether or not he was talked about in a bigger deal with Lindholm? But
I don't think so.
okay. All-Star skills, the 11 best players in the world plus JT Miller, Frank Seravalli.
You didn't
Defend
like that?
yourself because Canuck Nation is angry with you, my friend.
Why? I love Canucks Army, and I love the whole crew there. I'm one of your biggest supporters. Who else but me
Who
was
else?
out there saying this team is a firm playoff team in September? Tell me, who else came to Vancouver and said that?
I defended you online in this, Frank. I said, honestly, this is the guy that actually was predicting the Canucks to be good this year. So this wasn't your opinion, correct? You were quoting somebody else that you had heard, right?
I was quoting someone else that I had heard, but I have since adopted it as my own because it is true. It is the 11 best players in the world plus JT Miller. And look, I love Miller, and this year, watching him, he's been outstanding, but he's probably not in that category.
Here's the bouquet we're going to throw you.
Okay.
Sean Monahan goes for a first-round pick. Take a deep bow, Frank Seravalli, because you had this called a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Shortly after the trade was completed, I had actually gotten a call from one of the managers that helped do the trade, and he said, "Sir, do you feel vindicated?" And I said, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I took a lot of heat on social media saying that Sean Monahan was going to get it first, and that's okay. And I'm not patting myself on the back. It's also just reading the market. Seasons change, players change, but you can really go back in history and dig through more or less what these players get on a year-to-year basis. And the way the cap works, with him not having to have salary retained and making a third essentially of what Adam Henrique is, as soon as Lindholm was off the table, I don't want to say it guaranteed the first round pick for Montreal, because that's certainly not the case, but it really put them in a strong position to say, just give us one late first round pick, no salary retention, and we'll make it happen.
Were the Jets answering the Lindholm trade? Were they saying, "Oh God, the Canucks just got better, we have to as well"?
I mean, it'd be so attractive or sexy to say, look at this Western Canadian arms race, right?
Totally.
I think what it did is it's not so much matching the Canucks. The way I look at it is the center market was changing rapidly. And with Lindholm off the board and the number of teams that are left looking for centers, it's either get Monahan, get Henrique, or find a way to be really creative and start prying loose from non-playoff teams some players that have term left on their deal. And if not for those things, you're going to be left holding a bag at the center position. And I think the Winnipeg Jets, with the way Monahan plays, is a perfect fit. They wanted to make sure they get their guy.
Were the Jets in on Lindholm then? Do you know?
I think they were one of the teams that had contacted, yes.
Yeah. And you spelled it all out on the Monahan piece. Kopp, Goodrow, Stastny, they went for roughly a first-round pick.
Yeah.
Depth. Do you anticipate the Vancouver Canucks are now focused on depth, and where would that depth be, or everywhere?
I still think they're one defenseman away. I mean, you asked about Tanev. I think, look, they did such a good job rebuilding this defense over the last calendar year. But at varying points this year with the Soucy injury and, just being banged up from time to time, they've had to dig back into that well, which is you're using replacement level NHL players. And that's not a knock on the players that they've used. It's just that when you get to the Stanley Cup playoffs and you know that you need 8 good, solid, sturdy defensemen to make it through to the other end, you probably need to add one more piece. Doesn't need to be a household name, doesn't even need to be expensive. someone that you would feel really comfortable playing 23 playoff games with on your third pair if the bullets start flying and your guys start dropping.
Do you have any names for us? Do you know who they might be sniffing around, if not Tanev?
I don't think the Canucks need to spend that much. They got their big guy. I think you gotta get creative and look around. I don't have a name off the top of my head. I would think that a player of the ilk, skill set, and availability of Nick Seeler would make so much sense for Vancouver. I think, the reliability, the toughness. I could see an Alexander Carrier being a fit from Nashville. Just someone that it's predictability that you want if you're Rick Tocchet, that that if you have to use him, that you can rely on him.
Let's talk about the rare possibility of somebody leaving this team. If you're a betting man, I don't think Sports Interactions got this as a prop, but if you're a betting man, does Nikita Zadorov finish the season as a Vancouver Canuck?
I think he does. I understand the talk that's been out there. I think he hasn't been a great fit. He also hasn't been an awful fit. I think he's been just okay.
Mm-hmm.
And all things considered, I think unless you're getting a real significant upgrade on Zadorov, that I think it makes sense to keep him for all the reasons that I just outlined. If not, you're kind of just filling and adding in one additional, you're opening one hole to plug another.
Yeah. Can you help us understand it more? Like, is he not fitting in the room? Is he unhappy here? Is he not what Tocchet and Foote expected? It's just so odd to be hearing about his name and trade rumors on the way out so shortly after he's been acquired.
I don't know. I'm not in there. I wouldn't pretend to be. I haven't heard any rumblings about that. I've seen some of the comments on social media and elsewhere. But I can't say for sure one way or the other.
Frank, lo and behold, NHL players are going back to the Olympics, despite the grave concerns about construction on the rink. And
you're just going to skip right on past the Four Nation tournament? Are you kidding me? You're going straight to the Olympics.
Okay. One of these things is not like the other. Great news on that front. What's cinched the deal?
Pressure from the NHLPA that the NHL didn't have any wiggle room around this one. There's no excuse that you can make. You put in writing that you would make your best faith effort to put your best players in the world on Olympic ice. You did that when you signed the CBA in 2020 during the pandemic. COVID is the reason why they didn't go to Beijing. And this time around, 2026, 2030, you can squint a little bit and see in the distance 2034 in Salt Lake City, back in North America. It makes sense, and I've said this before, and I want to be really consistent when I say it again. The fact that we have gone from 2014 to 2026 without true best-on-best international competition, the fact that Connor McDavid will be halfway through his career and have never put on a Team Canada jersey in best-on-best it's not the lockouts, it's the biggest stain on Gary Bettman's resume.
It's a chance to make some money at the Four Nations before, but is it also a chance for them to make sure the guys have played together with each other, at least on four of the teams, so that when they do hit the Olympics, they hit it, in stride, having done it just a year previous?
I don't think that's the motivation. I think it's, first off, it's way better than All-Star Weekend. Mm-hmm. That's one. Mm-hmm. Two is they want to create some kind of consistent international play. And so in between 2026 and 2030 and 2028, we're expected to have a full-blown World Cup of hockey. And this was sort of the appetizer to the entree, where for geopolitical reasons, they can't have Russia in it. My understanding is Finland and Sweden had made it real clear to the NHL and the NHLPA that if Russia's in, we're out. So you can't bring Russia in. And there's no real reason to go to 6 teams to try and play a round robin in a 10-day tournament. I actually kind of like it. And no offense to Sweden or Finland, which obviously you have some significant Canucks pieces represented and have been over the course of the franchise with Sweden. But I would have loved to have just seen Canada USA 7-game series,
Yeah.
as opposed to trying to wedge in 4 nations. But that's just me being a little bit greedy.
Yeah, no, I don't dispute that. And of course, there was money involved in this tournament.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
that was.
It's not going to be gangbusters because of the
How
format.
much more money? How much more money would be in a U.S. Canada 7-game series?
Yeah, maybe more.
Yeah.
Maybe more. You're right.
Lastly, Frank, the LA Kings have fired their head coach, Todd McClellan. Jim Hiller taking over as the interim. You tell me, where are they going for a coach, and what's the next move for the Kings in terms of deadline and contention?
Getting back in this.
Well, Jim Hiller is going to be the LA Kings coach for the remainder of the season. The team saying that in the release. So no hiring around the corner. I think it's an interesting call. Hiller has, yes, he's been an assistant in the NHL for the last 10 years, so has certainly paid his dues. But I would say that for the Kings, really what this highlights for me, this is a guy that just got an extension before the season started. What it highlights is the pressure that Rob Blake and the Kings are under to really not just making the playoffs. That's not the bar. You've got to take a step forward. Bowing out in the first round, 2 consecutive years to the Oilers. The first time they were like, okay, we arrived a bit ahead of schedule. The second time they were like, we ran into Connor McDavid. That excuse it's no good the third time. And so now that they're on the fringes after a great start to the year of being in the wild card chase and now potentially being a non-playoff team, like their plan has been underway for a while. They've really got to show some results, and they're in way better spots than some other teams that have been through a rebuilding path like they have, but they've still got to show some results. And I think McClellan on his way out is a real indicator of the pressure that they're feeling in LA.
Fantastic stuff. Go enjoy All-Star Weekend. We'll catch up next Friday.
See you guys.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.